Welcome back to another episode of Trash Talk. I'm John Menard, this is Nick. We are the K-Bruce brothers giving you the fight news from all around the world. We are live from Chicago. It's fight week, UFC 319.
In Chi-Town. Beautiful city. I don't know why people give it a bad rap. We've been here for maybe about 2-3 hours now, and it's actually very nice, very clean.
It's very nice. I think this is one of the most anticipated fights of the year. You got Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev. I think one going to be one of the fights of the year. It's when I say boogeyman of the division, it's always nice seeing Khamzat on the card. He brings a lot of eyes.
Look, people like to take a shit on the UFC, probably me included, of them not putting on banger cards, not putting on the best cards.
Yeah.
You know, they've kind of diluted UFC pay-per-views to, you know, a lot of prelim fighters are not guys that deserve to be on a main card. This is not that card. UFC Chicago, UFC 319, the main card is stacked. We're going to do our preview later, but Dricus and Khamzat is one of my most anticipated fights of the year. Aaron Pico is now on the card.
Yeah.
Prates is on the card. MVP. There's some big names. It's going to be a good week.
I can't wait. We are here in, I think it's a Buckingham Fountain in Chicago. Beautiful
like
park.
Palace?
Yeah, the Hilton near the fighter hotels nearby. But let's get straight into the show. It's been a great week for TKO. They've just announced a new rights deal, but the hot take of the week is I'm going to say the UFC is more popular than WWE for TKO. If you're looking at the numbers, it doesn't say that though. It says WWE is making more money than the UFC.
Well, let's put this into context because the WWE have been spamming events. Since WWE has signed with TKO, they've had a premium live event every 2 weeks. They got a Saturday night main event.
They got NXT doing shows on the same time as AEW.
And then you got to think Raw and SmackDown and NXT are on every single week.
Yep.
Where UFC, they're not on every single week. They have their premium main events once a month.
Yeah.
They have fight nights maybe every other, maybe third or fourth week.
Well, look at the revenue for TKO for Q2 this year. WWE $556 million, UFC $415 million.
So WWE is making better money, but if we're now going off the recency of the rights deal, the US rights deal to show their product on TV in the US, the UFC outstrips them massively because I think what the WWE signed a $5 billion deal.
Yeah, to Netflix, but then they also just signed the deal with ESPN on top of that.
So who really wins there though?
I think WWE.
Really?
Because UFC's $7 billion deal just for US rights.
Across 7 years though.
Across 7 years, they're getting $5 billion for 5, and then they're also getting a US deal that's separate.
The UFC will get an international deal as well, but they're just negotiating.
Yeah, but okay, so
country.
WWE have less years, and they also have over $5 billion with just US.
So who do you saying is more popular?
I'm saying UFC is more popular because they've commanded a bigger rights deal in the US, but WWE is showing more profit. Is that just because of ticket sales and more events?
I think it's probably more sales and more events, and you got to look at social following as well. The WWE YouTube is probably one of the most followed YouTube accounts in the world. Outstrips that of the UFC. Instagram following, I think WWE again outstrips the UFC. So the WWE, you can make the case, is more popular.
And I think WWE is a bit more, you could say that because it's marketed to kids a bit more. It's not just scrapping, fighting.
5-6-year-olds aren't going to be subscribing to UFC's YouTube.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Following WWE.
You've got women following the divas. You've got, different championship levels. It's not all just heavyweights and whatever. I don't know. WWE is a more family-friendly product. Can you put it that way?
I can agree with that. And that's probably why, total following, Eddie's probably bigger.
And their events are grander. WrestleMania is over 2 nights. SummerSlam is over 2 nights. It's like taking your kids to Disneyland, whereas UFC, they're putting one pay-per-view on a month.
And you got to look at the life cycle of these promotions, okay? The WWE has been going on since the 1980s.
Yeah.
UFC only started in 2000, late 1990s. So Dana White is slowly building this. In 10 years' time, it'll probably be bigger than WWE.
But for TKO, they're two different things. One's pure entertainment. You wouldn't really call it a sport. UFC is mixed martial arts. It's a sport. And if you're comparing it to other sports in the US, it's doing pretty well with its recent rights deal.
And really, the biggest winner here is TKO because now they own both UFC and WWE.
Yeah.
So they're just negotiating with all these different brands: Paramount Plus, Disney Plus, ESPN, Netflix. At the end of the day, TKO just goes, "Hey, we've got the products. Pay us our money."
Well, let's go through the facts of the new UFC rights deal in the US. This is going to be massive for the company. It's starting with, it's a $7.7 billion deal over 7 years.
Let's give it a nice intro. For the clip, give it a nice intro.
I did. Let's look at the facts. No, I don't want to do breaking news.
Why not?
It's been broken everywhere.
Okay.
I say an alternate intro. Let's look at the facts of the UFC rights deal.
$7.7 billion deal across 7 years. The UFC has just inked probably the biggest deal in their history. And I think it's going to be great for the UFC.
Yeah, so all UFC events will stream to Paramount Plus, like it was on ESPN Plus, except it's only going to be for $8 a month. So now fans can just watch it for $8 a month, which is crazy.
This $8 figure that's getting thrown around.
No, but they're getting rid of pay-per-views.
That's just, I think the $8 figure, that's like the most minimum package that they can get. It'll probably more likely be $12 to $15 from reports that I've seen. But what this is great for is all pay-per-views, fight nights, everything, anything in Apex, it's going to be on one channel.
By the numbers, it is 13 numbered pay-per-views a year. Then you're getting 30 fight nights per year, and Dana White's promised 4 massive pay-per-views for the year, which is like 4 big headline events, which I think is going to be International Fight Week. That's usually one of the big ones. You got the White House card that they're talking about, and then some potential other ones, which are usually Noche, and maybe an MSG or an overseas one like Saudi or Qatar.
And it's nice to put this stuff to bed because I think for the last 6 months to a year, all everybody has been talking about is what's going to be going on with pay-per-views. Are fighters going to get paid more money? Which platform are they going to go on? Netflix? Are they going to stay with ESPN? It's nice to see that it's all been agreed upon, all on one platform.
And it's not annoying like the NBA or the NFL where it's like there's 2 games on Netflix, one on Amazon, and then the one on free-to-air TV.
5 different platforms just to see the best product.
Dana White was happy. He was smoking a cigar. He said today's going to be a good day. He announced a massive deal. But people have acknowledged this might be the end of crack stream. This might be the end of illegal pirating streaming. And people are saying, you know what, we've had a good run. We're happy to spend $8 a month.
Well, the narrative now is like, yes, I was happy to participate in this illegal streaming, but for $8 a month, like, guys,
the UFC's looking after its fans.
And
maybe that's how we can start the clip, Ryan. The UFC's finally looking after its fans. No more crack streams, no more illegal streams. You know, in the US, you can get it for as cheap as $8 a month now.
But what I do want to ask though, were you surprised out of all the platforms that it was Paramount Plus? I was expecting a Netflix because they were WWE.
When you think about it, Paramount is CBS. So they said some of the big events are going to go on free-to-air television, CBS. So this is probably the biggest the sport's ever going to be in terms of exposure. And I think Ari Emanuel, when he was negotiating it, said, we want exposure. They were even pushing ESPN to start showing events on ABC. So I think it makes sense. It needed to be on the streaming services, and then it's tied into television.
Know, but I just think, like, I've never even heard of Paramount Plus. I know of it, but I didn't know they were that big. And then, like, the relationship WWE has with Netflix, TKO's in there as well. I thought Netflix was guaranteed to get this.
I thought Netflix was 100%, but it is what it is. How about we move on to the next topic?
Go ahead.
Charles Oliveira has put the whole lightweight division on blast, saying they're all cowards and they're not taking any. They gave him some names. He said yes to a lot of them to fight in Brazil, and they all said no.
Well, you're paraphrasing there, but Charles Oliveira did want to fight in Brazil. He's fresh off, 2 months after getting KO'd by Ilia Topuria?
Which is crazy. I don't know who Charles' manager is. Why is he giving him fights 2 months after getting flatlined?
Because Charles has said, I haven't fought in Brazil in a long time. There's a main event or there's a fight night in Rio. I want to fight in Brazil.
I'm thinking this is retirement fight. If you're saying it's that important to you to fight on a fight night in Brazil, that means it could be Charles Oliveira's last fight.
No, the UFC probably wants to put a star on this.
Charles Oliveira is a pay-per-view star. He's a pay-per-view only guy. You don't take a fight night just because it's in Brazil. I'm thinking Charles Oliveira's retiring. He'd been put to sleep by Ilia and said, you know what, I need to fight in Brazil one last time. I'm saying it could be Charles' retirement fight.
Charles Oliveira's not retiring at least for another 3-4 years. This guy is a Brazilian. This is his life. I don't think you understand. He's not like someone that's living in Australia or the US where they can retire early. He lives in Brazil. He's probably got to pay for people to live in Brazil, so he's going to be fighting for a long time and keep earning those dollar bills. Well, why he wants to fight in Brazil is because he hasn't fought there for ages, and you know what? Fiziv's an easy fight for him. It's a lower ranked person, and anyone besides Max Holloway or Arman Tsarukyan, Charles Oliveira can beat.
Well, listen, the Fiziv fight, I will say, is a little bit scary coming off the Ilia knockout because Fiziv is a striker. So, you know, you're going to war again with another striker, and you're obviously going to have to change up what you did when you went and fought Ilia. So, I don't know. I'm keen to see it. I think this favours Charles a little bit because you're talking about a Charles that went toe-to-toe with Arman Tsarukyan. If you watch that fight back, it was closer than a lot of people think. I still give it to Arman, but Charles is still that guy. I just think it's a bit too soon for him to come back.
And look, Fiziv coming off, again, another fight night victory, but he didn't look like... Everyone thought he was going to go down a weight class after his fight against Justin Gaethje. And if Charles Oliveira can do what Justin Gaethje did, just get another W in the column, put yourself back in that top 5
and then maybe set up a Max Holloway fight.
Well, he said Max Holloway fight is inevitable. At some point, they're going to face off. But my favourite part of this whole interview was him having a go at Dan Hooker.
He did. He said, coward, I wanted it. He didn't want it, but it's a lie. they poke around, talk shit from the other side. He's just been talking for a long time.
And that's the case because Dan Hooker hasn't fought since last year in Perth.
He has been injured. I'm a Dan Hooker guy. He's been injured. Let's say
But
that.
he has, in the UFC's bad books, he's been talking shit about Arman Saruki and Paddy Pimblett, Charles Oliveira. He said, I want to face Charles Oliveira, the two blonde, I don't know what the quote was he said, but the two blonde guys in the UFC fighting, teeing it off. So why wasn't he? Why wasn't he putting up to this? Like, if you're Dan Hooker, you're looking to get to the championship, which is what he has said. Would you not want to face a Charles Oliveira in Brazil? Like, it makes sense. Why wouldn't you take it?
I think Dan Hooker's pretty much come out and said that he wants to fight for the best opportunities for himself. He's not going to put the company forward anymore. He's just going to take the best fights for him, and he has every right to do that. If he thinks the company doesn't back him and doesn't respect him, he doesn't have to step up for the company when being asked.
But like, from Dan Hooker's perspective, would you not want to face Charles Oliveira coming off a KO?
But you could face guys like Paddy Pimblett, you could face guys like Arman Sarukian, which are probably better for you, let's be honest.
I think Dan Hooker struggles more against Arman Sarukian than he does against Charles Oliveira.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. And Arman Sarukian's been making a lot of noise as well. For a guy that hasn't fought for over nearly a year and a half now.
Yeah, I think the UFC 300 is his last fight. What was that, March of last year?
Which is crazy. He's been going at Ilia Topuria non-stop online. He's even addressed it. He's saying, I'm going to keep going at him until he accepts a fight. He says the UFC has not reached out to him and offered the fight up, but he's been going on calling him a duck. He's trying to create the duck, John Jones duck kind of narrative. He's been calling him a little sausage dog. He's been just saying he's running away, and he's going to continue to call him out until he gets that fight.
And look, Arman Sarukian, I understand, because I actually enjoy the antics. I enjoy him chasing around a little duck.
Yeah.
Like, I find it funny. But ultimately, if the UFC's told you you're not fighting for the title next, you got to kind of move on and you got to accept it, because Paddy Pimblett's available. Justin Gaethje should be available. I don't know if he is. Mateus Gamrot, you probably should have just accepted that fight. You got to just accept the fight and move on. Like, I feel like the next fight I want to see is Dan Hooker versus Sarukian, because the back and forth on Twitter has been funny, and I feel like that's a great matchup for Sarukian. It's a very winnable fight.
I know Sarukian's a trained killer, but right now he hasn't gone to work in a year and a half. He looks like a paid influencer online, eating In-N-Out burgers, eating caviar off his hand. I think it's best for him to just take the next fight the UFC gives you, get back in the octagon, and then get your title shot.
And it sums up the whole lightweight division. Just a mess at the moment. No one knows who's fighting who. Even Paddy Pimblett, I don't know if you said, I'm waiting on the call, El Chorizo, like, I'm waiting for my title fight. It's like, you can't all be waiting for a title fight. Sarukian, Paddy Pimblett, Justin Gaethje. Like, just Dana, pick one, make one fight the other, just make shit happen.
Now, as we said, we are in Chicago. It is UFC 319. Let's go through our UFC 319 preview and prediction, starting with Tim Elliott versus Kai Asakura.
Now, I've watched some experts on this, because going into the last fight against Pantoja, I was a big Kai Asakura fan.
And it's been a very long time.
And it's been a long time since, last December, I think he last fought. And what I've heard from the guys here is Tim Elliott has taken a year and a half off as well. He's older. I think he's like 38 years old. A year and a half off in the octagon. And usually guys, I know this is like strictly for title fights, but guys in like those lower divisions, flyweight, bantamweight, once you reach over the age of 35, you're not the same fighter. You're slower. Your reaction time's not as quick.
Yeah.
So if it was a heavyweight fight, maybe you could give Elliott a chance. But I feel like here, Kai Asakura, like I'm saying, like you're slower. You have a bit more power. You rely more on your power.
I just couldn't imagine these guys being heavyweight.
No. I'm saying at their speed, Kai Asakura should get the KO here. I feel like he's got to make a statement to get, like, this is his UFC debut, really.
I'm going with the Japanese star, Kai Asakura. I think he's going to get a knockout done. I think he's going to do it in spectacular fashion. He needs that to stay relevant in the UFC after fighting for a title. So I'm going with Kai Asakura strictly to make a statement and, get in the good books of the UFC and work his way up back the ladder, you know what I mean?
Do you think his English has improved since the last fight?
Probably. I think he's very entertaining. I know he had some fun with Nina, and, he does use the translator, but he does it in a fun way. I like Kai Asakura. He's bringing in a big audience in from Japan. I'm going with Kai Asakura. Next up, we got Jared Cannonier versus MVP Michael Venom Page.
Again, this is one where I'm just looking at the ages. MVP's 38, Cannonier's 41.
41 is old.
And his fighting style is that of a bigger, slower fighter. MVP, even though he's old,
he's an assassin.
He's very young, he's very quick, a lot of volume. So I just think based upon the volume and speed of MVP, he'll probably get a decision victory.
If you're looking at MVP's past fights, like an Ian Gary, like a Shara the Bullet, he's there, standing there, trading, looking sharp. When a guy like Ian Gary can't contain your striking and just jumps on your back, I think you got a good chance against a guy like Jared Cannonier, who can trade shots, but like you said, is slower. And the current 41-year-old Jared Cannonier, I don't think he can get it done. So I'm going with MVP.
He physically can't be the same as what he was 10 years ago. And if you look at his last 3 to 4 fights, he hasn't been great. I think his last good victory was maybe against Sean Strickland, and that says a lot. So I think MVP will probably win here.
Jeff Neal versus Carlos Prates.
I really, really want Carlos Prates to win. I think he's funny, not a character, but this is just a 50-50 fight. I just can't tell you which way it's going to go.
Yeah.
And I just think based upon my likability of Jeff Neal, I just want him to win, maybe by KO.
Yeah. Look, I don't have much faith in Neal at this point. I think he's pretty much the gatekeeper fighter in this division, and I think they're serving this one up for Carlos Prates. I think stylistically it suits him. It's going to be two guys just going to war. Potentially could be fight of the night. They're just going to be striking. Carlos Prates likes to fight off the back foot. It suits him, this fight. I think he's going to get it done. The Ian Gary fight was very close for him. If he put the foot down and he wasn't smoking as many cigarettes and really put the pace on Ian Gary in the last round, I think he could have won that fight. Like how Ian Gary beat Jeff Neal, I think Prates gets past Jeff Neal, and the fighting nerds are going to get back into the victory circle going into Paris.
That's the thing. Going into his Ian Gary fight, I think he had 8 knockouts in a row. So, bar the Ian Gary fight, which still going to decision with Ian Gary is still very good.
I'm going to call it. It's a Prates knockout round 2.
I don't know about round 2, but he'll get the job done.
I think it's going to be. It's not as close as you think. I think he's going to be pushing the pace, and he's going to knock out not in spectacular fashion, but. Like I said, just make a statement on behalf of the fighting nerds, avenge his loss, Prates by knockout.
I like it.
Next up, on debut, Aaron Pico versus Lerone Murphy on short notice.
This is the co-main event, and this is a fight that I want to see because I think I saw Aaron Pico get interviewed, and the guy's absolutely shredded. He is a physical phenomenon, and someone that, you look at him, and you want him to win. I think he's from California, former wrestling champion.
Yeah.
Coming across from Bellator, which haven't had much recency success.
No, if you look at Patchy Mix, you look at Pitbull, they haven't been the best in the UFC.
So he needs to kind of set the record straight and put some respect on these kind of Bellator fighters. But Lerone Murphy, surprisingly, I actually had to look at it, he's undefeated. He's an undefeated fighter, hasn't lost, but he's also 35 years old.
He's fighting for an opportunity to put his hand up and say, I want to face Volk. I'm climbing the ranks. This was supposed to be Evloev versus Pico. Winner gets a title shot, let's be honest.
So I don't see why this fight isn't the same thing.
It probably will be, and that will be asked at the presser most likely by one of the shit reporters. And Aaron Pico could be fighting for a title, and so could Lerone Murphy. And it's great for Aaron Pico. Like you said, it's a classic striker versus grappler. Pico's going to lean on that wrestling and a bit of his gas tank. Is it a 5-round fight? I think it's 3.
I don't know. It's co-main event, so it could be either. I'm not sure. But regardless, I think Aaron Pico can get this done early because he's the ultimate wrestler versus striker. And I feel like any time a striker versus a wrestler, you're just too much at a disadvantage. And unless you're like a generational striker, like an Ilia, Topuria, Conor McGregor, you're really going to struggle if someone does take you down. I know people will say in his past few fights, Lerone Murphy does get up quick, doesn't have a lot of time on have his opponents have a lot of control time on him. But Aaron Pico's next level. He is someone that is a great fighter, great wrestler, so I think he'll get it done.
He's been training with the likes of Khamzat, which means
Arman Sarukian and Khamzat, mate, your wrestling's going to get elevated even more.
Yeah, I think his game's going to go to the next level here in the UFC. And that brings us to our main event. Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev, the boogeyman of the division, stepping up to face DDP for the title. This is DDP's biggest test yet. I actually cannot... It's going to probably take me all the way up until the press conference to see if Khamzat cries, to see who I'm going to go with. I don't know who I'm going to go with yet.
I'm going with Khamzat Chimaev, and I love Dricus du Plessis. I think he's very entertaining, great trash talker, great for the UFC. But Khamzat's fight style is just too good. He's just going to overwhelm Dricus du Plessis just the way he overwhelmed Robert Whittaker.
Yeah.
And I just think it's just going to go the same way. Yes, Dricus is a bigger body and a bigger fighter.
Yeah.
But if Dricus can't handle him in those first 2 rounds, I still think Khamzat has increased his cardio and he's just going to keep shooting in rounds 3, rounds 4, and even if he has to go to round 5, he said it himself.
Yeah, he said he's preparing it to go later rounds, but if it can be done quick, it will be done quick. Dricus's coaches have come out and said they're going to prepare for a war. They're prepared for a ground war. They said, don't expect DDP to shy away from the wrestling. We're going to out-wrestle him, which is crazy to think. Rob Whittaker tried to do the same thing, and look how that ended up. If you're going off how middleweights are, I don't know if DDP can step up and match Khamzat's wrestling. There's no one in the middleweights, even training partners, whoever it is, that can emulate Khamzat Chimaev's wrestling. Fighters like Arman Sarukian, Kyle Barilio have said they just see Khamzat being too much for DDP, and I think I've got to agree with them.
And look, we're the experts that have kind of have gone and said, oh, there's a 50-50 fight. If they said if Dricus can get past round 2, his cardio will probably drag him through the rest of the fight. But really, how does he get through rounds 1 and 2? Like, it's the people that are picking, Dricus for a late round victory, they haven't actually said how he's going to get there.
And Dricus is coming into this fight as the underdog, as champion. Not the first time that's happened. And I think he thrives in this position. He likes coming in with a point to prove. He might surprise a lot of people. He continues to surprise people when he gets these upsets. But I just think Khamzat is just going to be next level. And you're talking about a Khamzat that is driven right now. He wants to grab the championship. He wants to be active. He says, I want to be fighting in Abu Dhabi in October. So that, to me, sounds like he wants it to get it done early with no injuries.
Well, I feel like that's just the way he fights as well. But I respect Dricus' confidence because, as has been shown in his fight against Sean Strickland, against Rob Whittaker, against Adesanya, people keep calling him a retard, people keep picking against him, but he keeps showing up and keeps winning. So he said it himself, he's going to surprise the world, so I expect him to maybe do it again if he's that confident.
You know what? I'm going to go Khamzat by decision.
Nah, no, you can't.
You think it's going to be a finish?
I feel like if Khamzat does win, he does get it done by
a submission.
A submission's more likely, just because like the overwhelming ground and pound, like it's just going to be too much. I don't know. I just see this going the exact way it goes against Robert Whittaker, because Whittaker and du Plessis are kind of similar in the way they both stand up. They have okay ground.
So we're both taking just Khamzat to win. We'll just say Khamzat to win.
Khamzat to win.
Well, let's go into our UFC 319.
I'll give my bet out, but if you're smart, I'll just be safe.
Yeah, that's what I said. We'll go into our UFC 319 multis for this weekend. It's going to be one of the most stacked cards of the year. Nick, start with your multi.
Okay, I'm going to go with a big main card multi here. Kai Asakura head-to-head.
Yep.
Carlos Prates head-to-head. Aaron Pico head-to-head.
Yep.
Into Khamzat Chimaev to win in rounds 1 or 2. That's either submission or TKO. He's going to get it done in the first 2 rounds.
I like it. I'm going with a bit of a prelim here. I'm going Chase Super to get the win. I like Chase. I think his ground game's going to be a bit too strong. I'm going with Carlos Prates. Then I'm going to go with Aaron Pico to be the first Bellator guy in a while to get the win here in the UFC in his debut. Aaron Pico could get the W. Michael Venom Page to win. And last one, Khamzat Chimaev to win. So all head-to-heads, really. I'm not taking any decisions. I'm not taking any round 1 or 2. I'm taking a lot of fighters head-to-head that I think can win. And I think that's a good multi.
And look, I stayed away from the Venom Page fight just because I'm a bit scared of Cannonier. I don't want to touch it. But the problem with my multi is I feel like it's just going to be copied a lot. Like, I feel like that's the popular thing. Like,
well, you're taking most of the favourites.
I'm going with a lot of the favourites, and usually that loses. That's why I'm a bit worried. But hey, this is the time that it doesn't lose.
Hey, this is a favourites card. And I love DDP, but I just think Khamzat's just going to be too overwhelming. And I guess we'll wait and see. But again, another stacked card. Make sure you're tuning in and gambling responsibly with Neds.
Yeah, please do.
Last one I want to get into while we're here. Benn calling out Ilia Topuria. A boxer calling out a UFC fighter. Benn's already got his fight scheduled. They're doing the rematch with Chris Eubank Jr. But could we ever see an Ilia Topuria get into the boxing ring, probably with Zuffa Boxing?
I feel like if Ilia Topuria was going to go into boxing, it's not going to be against Conor Benn.
It's a bigger name?
He's got to go against a bigger name in boxing, because Conor Benn, don't get me wrong, nice big name, good fighter, but he did lose to Chris Eubank Jr.
Yeah.
And he's not Canelo Alvarez. Like, he's not that level of superstar. I feel like when McGregor went over, it was against Mayweather. So it's got to be like the best of the best, the biggest name.
And let's be honest, Ilia, I think, has full intentions of going into boxing, especially with this new ties. He said, I would love to go over and fight one of these guys. He believes in his boxing skills. I'm going to call it. We can come back to this episode. I think down the line, Zuffa Boxing is going to put Conor McGregor up against Ilia Topuria in the boxing ring. Conor McGregor, he's been sparring. He's back in the testing pool.
Looks a bit slow.
He looks a lot slower. So why would you go all out mixed martial arts? Let's do it in the boxing ring. And I think that fight is a must if you're going to put it on. It's pay-per-view gold. Ilia Topuria versus Conor McGregor in a boxing ring, I think it'll happen.
You know what was nice though? Conor Benn said, I don't want to fight you in the cage. Why would I be stupid to fight you in the cage?
He's smart.
He acknowledges that he's obviously like, it'd be stupid to do that. He's not arrogant. He's not deluded. But he did say, I want to verse you in a boxing ring. Let's make it happen. So maybe Ilia Topuria does take him up on the offer. You know, maybe some Saudi billionaire, Turkey Al Sheikh says, hey, Do you want $100 million? Because that's like your next 10 UFC fights.
That's what this Zuffa boxing is for. Dana White's been tasked to put on these massive events. They're doing it at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, Canelo versus Crawford. I can definitely see down the line, whether it's a Logan Paul versus Conor McGregor, Dana White is going to be promoting Ilia Topuria in the boxing ring, and it's going to be making millions.
It just makes sense because he's knocked out legends, and he's just such a great boxer in the octagon.
He's very skilled.
So why wouldn't he transition into boxing for a super fight? That's because the thing, like, hopefully now with this new rights deal, the UFC fighters start getting paid those tens of millions of dollars.
So you're saying Conor Benn, get in line?
Get in line because, I mean, he's going to be commanding at least 50 mil for a boxing fight.
Okay. Hey, well, that is all we have time for here in Chicago. Make sure you're tuning into the fights this week. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at K Roos Bros on YouTube, and keep an eye out on all the clips at John Bernard K on Instagram and TikTok. We're pumped for a fight week. Let us know in the comments who you think is winning, Khamzat or DDP.
Khamzat.
And we'll see you next week. Back to you in the studio, Ryan.